Some of it's luck. I almost hate to say luck because that's such a you can't control that.
Mm.
So a lot of it's the being in the right place at the right time, but saying yes.
This is the Job Stories Podcast, how people find work that matters. If you don't mind, just to right off the top, introduce yourself and what is your job now? What is it that you do, and for who?
So my name is Susan Culkin, and my background is in product design, and I'm currently building a UX team for AllianceBernstein, which is a global asset management firm. So I'm kind of focusing on keeping up with the redesign, but also kind of standardizing our process and educating stakeholders on the concept of human-centered design. But I also teach a night class on digital product design is the name for National Software School. And I like that. I always learn more than my students do, I think. So I've been doing that for a few years.
Yeah, that's really cool. So does that, with the National Software School stuff, does it kind of feel like just kind of almost like mentoring a little bit? Does it kind of feel like that to a degree?
Say it again.
Are you does it kind of feel like you're able to kind of mentor? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that happens. And you know what, I'm teaching professionals. They have come in with a lot of their own experience. So sometimes I learn even more.
Yeah.
I have a security expert in this current cohort, and he's taught me a few things that I didn't know. So I don't know if I'm mentoring them as much as they mentor me, but it does make me stay on top of the industry. Any professional should be staying on top of their industry. But for me, anyway, I think it drives me a little bit more to make sure that I'm teaching them the newest and the best. So.
Oh, that's really cool. So have you kind of back us up a little bit? Have you been in product for quite a while? Like kind of how's your story go a little bit?
So my story goes that I was an art director for a big consulting firm in DC. And one advantage of working with large companies is you have large clients with large wallets. And we were approached by one of our clients at a telecommunications company that's long gone, but they wanted one of these new things called an intranet. And we're consultants. So when they said, can you do that? Of course, we said, sure. And then we went back to the office and said, oh my God, what is an intranet? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me just go ask the employees what they wish they could get to via their computers. So user experience wasn't a name yet, and there was no Google. So we didn't have anywhere to look. So we went and talked to people, and the techs went off to figure out what can we build with HTML, and it went from there.
Kind of a fake it to make it type situation. I love that.
Oh, exactly.
Just kind of. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier today. I was like, sometimes you just got to go for things. You just got to go for it every once in a while. I know, like people are a little more averse to risk, but we were talking about that, and I think just from us building our own business from an entrepreneur standpoint, it's wild. Navigating risk is wild. So, have you felt any of that in your career, like maybe changing jobs or anything like that, and navigating risk?
Yeah, and some of it's luck. I almost hate to say luck because that's such a you can't control that. So a lot of it's the being in the right place at the right time, but saying yes. Like the next example I can think of when I had oh my gosh, where am I going to look for that information? Was worked for a cable firm up in New York, and it was a kind of a small but scrappy. Saying small for cable is, they're never really that small, but in the industry it would be one of the smaller ones. And we're always willing to try something. And Apple actually approached us before the iPad was out to say, hey, do you want to put the TV on the iPad? And so my boss pulls me in and says, what do you think? And I said, let's do it. Like, why would we say no? But that time I knew to say, but I'm going to need help. So every bit is learning. So
Back to the fact that you're teaching now for Nashville Software School. Have you always had that side in you that you'd like to teach what you know, or was that a thing that developed over time? I mean, could you talk about that? Because I think it's interesting because after you're in a career field for a little while, you think you got it. And so then making yourself teach it, it would
yeah.
make me think, yeah, I don't have this as well as I thought. So kind of walk
Oh
me
yeah.
through that. Like, have you always wanted to teach, or
No,
how did you come across
actually,
that?
it just didn't occur to me for exactly the reason that you said. Like doing it is one thing, but I don't know. Can I explain this to somebody?
All right.
It happened because John Wark, the founder, and I had been both mentoring at a startup accelerator, and we had met and talked about UX and starting companies and product design. And really, the school was new, and he needed somebody to come in and show the HTML and CSS class, like basically design for developers for a day. And he reached out to me and said, could you do that? And I was like, I guess I could. So I came up with something, and I always feel bad for the first class because they're the guinea pigs, and then you realize I'm going to change it this way. So that's really how it happened, because John asked me, and then it just grew into a class, and same thing. I was like, well, I guess I could figure this out. And I guess the first class couldn't have been too bad. I actually work with one of my students from there, and every once in a while I'll tell him, I really think you should take this over again. I've got this down so much better now.
Yeah. Have you? I mean, so I was a teacher. I was a elementary math teacher for a little while to start my career, and so like I definitely found that the first class today, pretty awful. Second class today, not as awful. Third class today, a little bit better, and by the fourth and fifth class, I was pretty solid. So like,
Yeah.
but I would imagine, I mean, it's IT, so it changes so much, and so like, how do you? I mean, of course, you improve over time, but then by the time you think you have the material, it kind of changes a little bit.
Yeah.
So what is your process to learn, and then so that you can go teach?
So the process to learn, and I teach the class the way I work, really, of there's a process, and I'm going to cram this in a few weeks so that when you walk out of here, you can reproduce this. So, and I think that's just how I think. That was we're going to start with discovery, then we're going to do definition, and I felt more confident kind of managing them in a case study. So that's what we're doing. And really, I always learn from my class. There's that from every class, every cohort. I follow the same process, but I do have to update the materials. For example, audio came up, Siri, Alexa, all of that. I had to be honest and say, I'm sending you videos and things to read on this because I am not an expert on this. We have to figure this part out together. And I was just lucky that it wasn't a big demand in this class. But I'm going to have to take some classes or reach out to some friends of mine who do that. So every once in a while, it's just reaching out to somebody and saying, I need you to either come talk to my class so I can learn how to do this, or can we have coffee? And a lot of times just medium.com is awesome because it's a great network of you start this article and it will send you off to another expert. And, it's a lot of reading and YouTubing.
It's more of like what we talk about quite a bit, but that continual learning and that through thread between most folks like yourself. And I think that's good for candidates to hear that they need to sign up now. Like you're going to be learning, and like it never stops. And hiring managers, love to hear that from candidates about what are you working on now? What do you want to work on? Is that just is that something that you kind of lean into as well, that continual learning?
100%. And it's part of what I like about UX is for example, I work for a financial asset management. I am not a finance person
Mm.
whatsoever. You do not want me managing your money. But I can figure out, I can take what our users need, what our customers are looking for, and translate it to the digital interface.
Mhm.
And I can talk to the experts. So that's part of the reason I like this so much. Healthcare, music, finance.
Mm.
I've worked in so many different industries. I get to learn just about people. I got into this because I like people.
Mm.
That first example that I told you about, said, do you want intranet? I had been an art director. And the example I always give is picking the perfect shade of blue is actually very important, because that's the curb appeal, that first look that somebody has on your app or your website or whatever. That's what captures their attention. But I find it a lot more interesting to find out, what do you think when you sit down and your hands touch the keyboard or touch the screen of your phone? What are you as a user expecting to happen?
Mm.
I just think humans are fascinating. It's how
Yeah.
they work.
Yeah.
So you have to keep learning to be able to keep up with them.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It would seem that somebody in your role, and I may be way off base, but it would seem like empathy would have to be pretty high on your character trait list, because you have to put yourself in user shoes and go out and talk to them and look at what they look at and feel what they feel. So is that high on, and what you look for in employees, is that a character traits you're looking for?
And yes, entirely. Empathy and curiosity. And for the empathy, it's not just designers. User experience is not just for your user experience designer. The person with that title is not just supposed to be creating wireframes and guiding you on the tone and the keeping an eye on accessibility. That should be company-wide. Everyone should be thinking about, who is that human that we are designing this for? I think it's great when I give them a solution and they ping me back and say, I could do it that way, but look at this other idea I have, because I'm not going to know everything. And there's no reason for me to know everything. There's a large team of people that I work with here, and there's a lot of experts out there. I don't need to know everything. I just need to listen. I need to pay attention. Listening is probably the most important skill for any designer.
Mm. You mentioned a second ago too about all the different industries you've been involved in. So with the twists and turns in your career, like what's been a big motivator for each turn? I mean, that's a pretty broad question, but can you think of anything that's kind of
I don't know if this is a fair example for others. It's been very much family driven. Like I had a great job. I was doing a lot of cutting edge work, learning constantly, working with fabulously talented people, but they turned it to 100% travel. And I wanted to be home at least in the evenings with my kids. So I left that one. I've moved for my husband's job. My husband has moved for mine. So a lot of the things that have come around me are more outside effects or whatever.
Yeah.
I would also, but the thing that makes me start thinking I've got to move on is when I'm bored. Like if I am not learning something and everyone is not looking to do better, like we should always be trying to exceed our users' expectations, our customers' expectations. I want to exceed my boss's expectations, my manager's expectations. If that's not happening, then I'm gonna start checking those job boards.
Yeah, it's wild. A lot of folks that we talk to, I mean, when we're in our early 20s and right out of college, that motivator's money, right? But it for everybody, folks like yourself that we talk to, it's not that anymore. So I love the family answer. I mean, I have a young daughter. He's got young kids. Like, sure, money sounds great. Like, we want to support our family, but we think a little bit bigger than that too now. It's kind of, we want to spend time with him. Matthew said that today. I mean, his last job, he wouldn't have been able to spend as much time with him. So, yeah, that was a great answer.
Never ends.
Yeah.
I would assume you have multiple projects going on at the same time for your current company. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. It's very true.
Yeah. So how do you manage those multiple projects and train the people that are behind or maybe need a little bit extra support, and then let the people go wild as they show you that they can maintain that much responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
How do you judge who needs help and who doesn't, and managing all those projects going on at the same time?
I love a good project management schedule.
Gantt chart.
And oh yeah, I love a good project manager who's going to let me know that this has to be done before that and all those things. But having a process it's kind of like, you know, no designer ever wants to just do exactly what was done before. But we have a style guide, we have a process, we have research. Like there's always those principles to follow. So there's that to keep everyone focused. You know, it's my job is to not set rules as much to set the guardrails, you know, to here's where we're all starting together and way over there is the destination. We're going to get there together. And the higher up I go in teams, it feels like less, I still do hands-on occasionally, but that is less important as to making sure that we're all traveling the same way. And back to how do I know they're staying on schedule, on target? One, there's definitely the milestones of the project management. But some of it's just we have check-ins. I am the opposite of a micromanager. I'm not good at that. If I have hired you because I think you're talented and smart. And if I have to micromanage you, I have made a mistake in my hiring. Everybody's different. Some people prefer that. I get that. But you have to, I hate to use a cliche, but I do have the open door policy. If you are confused, it is your responsibility to come ask me. But it is also my responsibility to say, hey, I need to see what you're doing. Right. So check-ins, and have not had any problem with that being personally, have not had any problem with that being in person or over Zoom. Sometimes I might think Zoom is a little bit easier because just share your screen with me. And also I need to keep in mind, I like working on multiple projects because they often benefit each other. You know, if I learn something on another project and I tell my team this, it's their all of our responsibility to say, you know, the product manager over here had this idea. I think we could use this over here. I'd like to have more, I don't have the word for it. I don't want to say meetings, but more conversations where kind of a show and tell. I wish we had time to do that right now of just plain show and tell. Here's either what I'm working on at work, or here's what I'm working on the side, or here's this thing that I demoed. I wish we had more time to do that. We just don't right now, but I can hope.
Yeah. When you think about your processes or systems, and so say you have a process for how you start a project, and then you have 6 projects start, and do you ever have like an autopsy of how you start those processes and like re-look at, okay, maybe this isn't the first step. Maybe the first step is actually this. Do you ever have conversations like, because I'm sure the process to start a project, or not only to start a project, but to take that example, I'm sure it's not the same over time. So I'm sure you have to go back and re-look at those. So yeah.
Yeah, I like autopsy. I'm going to steal that. I like that word. Instead of retrospect is what we usually call them. Yes, you were correct. But at the same time, that process should be scalable. So every process does not need to go out. Well, in my heart of hearts, I would always go out and start researching with new people and all of that, but not everything needs that. You know, you got to check the scale of it. And actually I have a new designer who we're flip-flopping what I would call the gap analysis of the thing that tells us, do we have everything that we need to fulfill the business requirements and the user needs? We're going to flip-flop it a little bit on his suggestion. And I may really regret this. I'll know in a couple months when we get to the usability testing. But just got to take the risk. So
Susan,
I love a good retro.
You've made a fan today, because if you wanted some insight into our small team, this is our process guy. He loves it. So you're a hero right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
To drop the mic and go now.
Yes.
I'm very much of the mindset that because I do one thing well one time, I need to write that down and document it, because that doesn't need to be the only time it goes right. Isn't that correct? So
Correct.
I'm just intrigued by how you go back and look at, okay, this is working about our process, or this is not. So it's interesting.
Yeah. So yes, in the ideal world, I would write everything down and build a Confluence page. And when I win the lottery and disappear tomorrow, someone would be able to sit down and pick up where I left. But that doesn't happen. I hate to say this, but it is really just taking a project. Everything is a case study for me. And just the noting, putting it out on a wiki basically is what I have going of this went really well, because I'm going to forget.
Yes.
But I don't have time to write it out or nor does everyone want me to spend the time writing out exactly everything we did. So I have some pretty messy, here's an example, and here's a couple bullet points, and this is the project we did it for. Next.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure when that happened. It used to be a lot more organized, but now we're pretty scrappy about it.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I hope my wife doesn't listen to this episode, because she'll know that I'm owning this, but I'm lucky if I can repeat the same process when I leave the house, just to have my keys, my wallet, my phone. I can't do it, which is not, that's bad. So that's why
But that's fine.
Matthew is he really helps us with that. So.
I'm a former PM, so
Yeah,
I think
there
that
you
should give you a little insight into my process thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you can't find your own keys, that's fine. That's your problem. But
That's true.
if
Maybe
your
I'm not losing other people's
developer
keys.
needs you to get those keys, then that's a problem.
That's true. That's true. As long as I'm losing my wallet, it's okay. Losing somebody else is
Exactly.
a real issue. Yeah, that's great. Well, Susan, I think we're getting close to time, but I think do you mind to mention again, you said folks to reach out to you if they wanted to, it'd be through your website. Would that be okay if anybody wanted to reach out?
I would be flattered if anyone wanted to reach out to me.
And what is that URL? What is that?
SusanCulkin.com. So Susan, CULKIN.com.
Perfect.
And you'll see there's a chat button.
Okay, awesome. And we'll post a link too. But thank you. This has been so fun. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate your time. It's been a blast.
I enjoyed it too. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Absolutely. You have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Fabulous.
Awesome. Thanks.
Have a great
Take
week.
care.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.